Welcome to the video solutions for the City and Guilds Functional Skills English Level 2 Writing Sample Paper 2. In this video, we will go through the questions and you can get a better idea of what you want your answers to look like, as well as what to look out for when planning your answers. During your writing exam, you will be examined on your written composition, which is worth 56% of your marks, and your spelling, punctuation and grammar, which is 44% of your marks. So spelling, punctuation and grammar, it's quite clear what that will cover, but written composition covers the clarity of your writing, whether it makes sense, whether it's detailed enough and long enough, the kind of organisational features that it is using and whether these are appropriate, the use of organisational markers to make the writing cohesive, the use of appropriate language and register to suit the audience and purpose, and the use of complex sentences. Question 1. You have a job working on a youth magazine. So already in this question, we've been told that we need to be writing a youth magazine. So we're writing a magazine for young people. Generally, these are quite informal documents, so we've already got an idea of the kind of tone that we'll need to be using in our answer. You have to write an article, so that's the text type. Based on the title, one thing I would change in this world. So you need to focus your answer on this title here. It might be a specific event in history, something that is likely to occur in the future, the invention of a machine or piece of technology, or something more personal to you. Your task is to write the article. You should include an explanation of what you would change, why you want to change it, how your life would be different, and how the world would be different. So these are our options that we've been given, and then these bullet points give us an idea of how we might structure our answer. So in the first paragraph, you might explain what you want to change. For example, an event that's happened in your life or an event in history. You have to explain why you want to change it and what impact it would have. So how your life and the world would be different if this particular thing, whatever you have chosen, was changed. And we need to be writing 300 words for this answer. So to get a good idea of what 300 words looks like on the paper, you could have a go at writing some practice answers and see how many words each practice answer comes to. So we're now going to take a look at a model answer for this question, and we're going to think about the positive and negative aspects of this answer. So what has the student done well and what could they improve on? One thing I would change in this world. When I was 10, my family and I went on holiday to Romania to visit my grandparents. I was so young then that I didn't really understand where I was, or even the fact that I came from a very different country to all my friends back in Liverpool. The only thing I really remember was the heat of the metro that seemed to make the air feel thick. On one occasion, when we climbed out of the metro, I was met by the familiar cool breeze and a man standing by the entrance holding out a water tank. He held a sign that I couldn't read and looked at everyone who came out of the station as if he knew them. Inside his tank were dozens of turtles, no bigger than a £2 coin. I pulled my dad's sleeve and asked him if we could take one of them home with us. I figured they were so small that I could carry it back on the plane in my pocket. Of course, he said no, and I didn't understand why. Since then, I have often thought about what happened to those turtles, about who bought them and what their lives are like. If I had the power to go back and change anything, I would make it so that I could have rescued one of those turtles. I've always been comforted by reptiles in a way that I never did with cats or dogs. I think that I enjoy how calm they are, and a little turtle could have helped me through all the stresses I went through in high school. I would have made sure that they had the best life they possibly could have. Changing this wouldn't have prevented any natural disasters, nor cured a serious disease, but this is something that I had the power to change and wasn't able to. So the first marking criteria that we're going to look at is the use of punctuation in this answer. So the answer uses full stops and capital letters correctly throughout. So at the start of every sentence we've got a capital letter and we have a full stop at the end. So you've got to make sure that you do this. You also need to, every mention of I should have a capital letter, and proper nouns like people's names and places like Liverpool. We've also got lots of commas used throughout the answer to add further detail to sentences. So for example, in this paragraph we've got on one occasion, comma, when we climbed out of the metro, comma, I was met by the familiar cool breeze and a man standing by the entrance holding a water tank. So here we've used commas to separate parts of the sentence and to separate different ideas. We've also got apostrophes used to make contractions and shorten words. So for example, we've got didn't here, which is a contraction of the words did and not. And then we've got couldn't, could and not. And contractions are used in informal texts to create an informal tone. And in this case, that is very suitable for the magazine article text type. So you could try and use a little bit more ambitious punctuation like colons, dashes, question marks and exclamation marks, but make sure that you know how to use these first, because using them incorrectly could make your writing less clear and accurate. Next, let's think about grammar. So in this answer, sentences are all accurate and they make sense on their own. The best way to make sure that your writing makes sense and you use accurate grammar in your answers is to imagine that you're reading the answer out loud. Does it all make sense if you read it out loud? So we've got accurate and consistent use of past tense for the first few paragraphs because they're talking about a past experience, so that's relevant. And then we appropriately change to present tense when we talk about past feelings about the past situation. So I've often thought about, and then if I had the power to go back and change everything, I would make it so that I could have rescued one of those turtles. Generally, the grammar in this answer is fairly strong, except in the first sentence of the final paragraph, we do have a little bit of an error. It says, I have always been comforted by reptiles in a way that I never did with cats or dogs. And the error here is that they have used the word did when it should have used the word was or that I never have instead. Did doesn't quite make sense in that sentence there. So just make sure that in your own answers you check everything to make sure that it makes sense and your nouns and verbs are matching up appropriately. Now let's have a look at the spelling. You need to spell correctly and try to use longer words that might be trickier to spell in your answers to show that you've got a really good control of spelling. So all spelling is accurate in this answer, and they've included some tricky specialist words. For example, comforted, they've got prevented and serious. So a few trickier words to spell there. You don't have to go crazy with really long, complicated words, but just including some longer words will really show the examiner that you know how to spell correctly. So you need to make sure that all your writing makes sense, and good spelling, punctuation and grammar will help to make your meaning clear. So this answer is very clear, we've read it out loud and we've seen that it all makes sense. It's also important to make sure that your answers are an appropriate length and they include appropriate details. So in this question, we've been asked to write approximately 300 words, and this sample answer meets that word count. So we've got also a range of details that are relevant. How do we know that they're relevant? Well, they've answered all of the bullet points that they should include. They have explained what they would change. They would have taken one of the turtles. They've explained why they want to change it. It would have made their life better, and they could have made the turtle's life better as well. And then they've explained how their life would be different, and they've touched on how the world would be different as well. The world wouldn't have changed, but it's something that they had the power to change and wasn't able to. And they would have been helped during the stresses in high school. So they've definitely addressed all of the points there. Their answer is detailed. They've explained the scenario, giving details about what they could see and what they heard, that kind of thing. So to add details to your answer, you can always add information or explain your ideas with some reasons. Make sure that any details that you add are always closely related to the question. It can often help to use a mind map at the start to come up with lots of different ideas, and then you can structure those into a logical order. The next set of criteria is formatting and organisation. So you need to choose an appropriate range of organisational features that you can use in your writing to make it clearer and break it up into sections. So we don't have very many organisational features here. For a magazine article, we've got a heading. That would be required for a magazine article, and they've used paragraphs, which is also a requirement there. You could be a lot more adventurous than this. You could use subheadings and other features like bullet pointed lists, but overall this is satisfactory because they have used an appropriate title and they have used paragraphs appropriately. Make sure that your paragraphs follow a logical structure. So these ones go in chronological order. What happened in the order that it happened. So they went to Romania, they saw the turtles, and then they thought about what happened to them, and finally they've been thinking about how it could have changed the world. To gain marks, your answer will also need to be cohesive. So that essentially means that everything is linked together to have a really clear meaning, and you've joined up your ideas so that they can flow effectively. So sentences in this answer flow on from one another and they're all linked together. So when you're writing a paragraph, all of the sentences in the same paragraph should all be about the same thing. So in this last paragraph, they've explained that they've been comforted by reptiles, and then the second sentence follows on from this by saying, I enjoy how calm they are. So referring to the reptiles when they say they. And then we've got the next sentence, I would have made sure that they had the best life they could possibly have, still referring to the reptiles at the top there, linking all of this paragraph together. And then changing this wouldn't have prevented any natural disasters, but it's something I had the power to change. So changing this refers to the rest of the paragraph there. So it all links together in a logical order. We've also got the use of some connective words and punctuation to make sentences more complex and cohesive. So in the second paragraph, we've got lots of uses of the word and here and lots of commas to connect ideas together. Another important aspect of writing that you'll be assessed on is language and register. So this means that your writing has to have the right kind of tone and style to match the reader who it's aimed at. So this magazine article is suited to the purpose. Magazine articles are generally writing to entertain, and they've given a sort of long, entertaining description here, and explain their thoughts and feelings, their opinions. It's suited to the audience. So our audience, we're writing for a youth magazine, so we're writing for a general audience of young people. We've used an informal tone to engage with these young readers. We've got these contractions like didn't there, and we have some kind of the use of I throughout to kind of show the reader that they're talking about their personal experiences. We've got kind of a narrative style going on here to talk about their personal experience. They're telling a story and explaining their emotions. So we've got sort of a sombre, regretful tone that's created here, and they've used emotive language to do this. So phrases like I didn't understand why are going to create sympathy in the reader, and then words like comforted and calm, this emotive language is going to help to create an emotional feeling of regret and pull on the reader's heartstrings because they have been robbed of this comfort and calm that they could have had. And finally, in your answers, you will need to be using complex sentences. So these are longer sentences that have multiple clauses separated by commas or other punctuation. So sentences that link lots of different ideas together. So in the second paragraph, we can see that a long sentence has been used here. On one occasion is the first part of the sentence, and then when we climbed out of the metro is another part. I was met by the familiar cool breeze. And then we've got the next part of the sentence joined with an and a man standing by the entrance holding a water tank. So this is a complex sentence because it's including lots of different ideas. They've established the time frame, they've explained that what they did before they were met by the man, they've given some sort of background explaining the cool breeze, and then they've gone into detail about the man in the water tank. So complex sentences like that show that you can put ideas together and link things together effectively. So overall, this answer is a very good one. It addresses all of the criteria, effectively answers the question, definitely addresses each point in the question. It's suitable for the audience and the purpose. It makes sense and it flows effectively. It uses the correct formatting, uses a heading there appropriately, and we've got an effective use of paragraphs with sentences that link up well. We've got accurate spelling and correct use of punctuation throughout the answer, and the writing is especially effective for these reasons. So in your own answers, try to get creative, come up with a situation like this one if you're met with a question like this, and make sure that you're structuring it effectively and making sure that your spelling, punctuation and grammar are all accurate. Question 2. You are fed up with all the litter you see in your area and you have an idea about organising a sponsored litter pick to solve the problem and raise money for charity. Your task is to write an email to your friend explaining your idea and asking for her help in organising the event. You should cover what the problem is, why it would be better if the problem was dealt with, what your idea is and how it would work on the day, the charity you would like to help, and what you would like your friend to do to help organise the day. And you should write 250 to 300 words. So in this question, we've been told the text type that we need to write. So we need to write an email, which means we're going to be using all the formatting features that are required for emails. And we've got the audience as well. So we're going to be writing to our friend. This means that we're going to be using quite conversational language and writing with a quite informal tone. So maybe we might want to use some slang words or sort of affectionate terms that show that we are friends with this person. the topic that we need to focus on is littering. So we're focusing on the litter as a problem, and we are organising a sponsored litter pick to try and resolve that problem. And finally, we want to be raising money for charity as well. So you might want to include details about which charity you are raising money for and how you are going to raise money for them. We've also been given these bullet points that will help us to understand what we need to write about and that will help us structure our answers. So we need to cover what the problem is. So we need to describe the littering that's going on, what types of litter we are seeing. Then we need to explain why it would be better if the problem was dealt with. So what kinds of problems is the littering causing? For example, is there glass on the streets that might be dangerous to animals and children? What your idea is and how it would work on the day. So we need to describe in detail how this sponsored litter pick event is going to be organised. So how are you going to recruit people to help? What are you going to do on the day in order? So for example, you might want to collect some bags first and then go to the park, put some gloves on and collect pieces of litter. The charity you would like to help. So give some details about the charity and explain why you want to help them. And finally, what you would like your friend to do to help organise the day. So think about any tasks that might be useful to help organise a litter pick and suggest these tasks to your friend. Say, ask for help to get these tasks done. And your suggested word count again, 250 to 300 words. So make sure that your answer is falling in that word count there. So let's take a look at a model answer for this question. So we've got to lindsay48@email.com, subject project canal cleanup. Hi Lindsay, I enjoyed our walk along the canal last week. Since then I haven't stopped thinking about all the litter and fly tipping that has almost ruined the scenery. Do you remember all of the plastic bags and shopping trolleys bobbing in the water? The canal isn't just a nice place for a walk, there are also lots of animals that call it their home. I've decided that we need to take action. I've been in touch with a few people at the council and I've decided that I would like to organise a community canal cleanup event. This will be on Sunday the 2nd of February and it will be a sponsored event. All of the proceeds will go towards a local sanctuary that looks after ducks and other birds that have been injured by litter. I wanted to ask if you would help us out with this event by making a few posts on social media. I will send you a PDF of the poster that I designed. Could you also let your other family members know and see if they would like to attend or sponsor you? I think that if we can get as many people as possible, this will have a big impact. This will mean that more money will go to the sanctuary, but it will also make everyone who litters think twice after they have seen us there in our high-vis jackets picking up their mess. Thanks for all of your help, Lindsay. Love, Lisa. So now we're going to talk about all of the criteria that you'll be assessed on to evaluate whether this is a good answer and to point out the positive and negative aspects of the answer. So to start with, you'll be assessed on your use of punctuation. You need to correctly use capital letters and full stops throughout your answer, and this answer definitely does this. We've got I and a full stop there, and then we've got since then with a full stop at the end of that sentence. So every sentence, if you check, will have a capital letter at the start and a full stop at the end. We've also got every time I is mentioned, that is capitalised as well. We've also got commas used throughout the answer, and these add some further detail to sentences. So, for example, we have the canal isn't just a nice place for a walk, comma, there are also lots of animals that call it their home. So we could have two sentences there, but instead we've used a comma to join these two ideas together. We've got a question in the first paragraph to get the reader thinking, so we've used a question mark there. Do you remember all the plastic bags and shopping trolleys bobbing in the water? And we've got apostrophes used to shorten words. For example, haven't, we've got that contraction there of have and not, and that is used correctly. We have a hyphen to create one word from two words in cleanup. And in the third paragraph, we have another question here, used this time to make a request. Finally, we have an exclamation mark at the end to create emphasis and add emotion to the writing. So we've got lots of correct uses of punctuation here, and we've got a variety of punctuation that's been used to create a really effective response. So try to use as much punctuation as you can, but make sure that you're using it appropriately. If you're not sure how to use something, then it's best to try and avoid it. Now let's take a look at grammar. So your sentences need to be accurate and make sense on their own. Often the best way to do this is try to imagine reading the answer out loud and see if it makes sense to you. So we've read this entire answer out loud and all of it makes sense. We've got an accurate and appropriate use of past tense to explain things that happened in the past, and we've got the use of present and future tense to talk about what's going to happen in the future and to make suggestions. You should always make sure that your use of tense is consistent. So, for example, in the second paragraph here, we've got accurate use of both past tense and future tense. So I have spoken with a few people at the council and have decided that I would like to organise a community cleanup event. So this is past tense, and then this is linked to the future. This will be on Sunday the 2nd of February, and it will be a sponsored event. So we've got past tense and then future tense, and we're not mixing up tenses and getting things confused there. We've also got, in the first paragraph, we can see that the canal is described as the, using a specific canal there, and the plastic bags as well, because they're thinking about specific plastic bags that they saw. And they have used a rather than the for a walk, to show that it could be any walk, that they're not talking about the specific walk that they went on. So think about whether you need to use the to describe something specific or a to describe something more general. Next, let's take a look at spelling. So all of the spelling in this answer is correct, and it has included some trickier, more specialist words. For example, in the first paragraph, we have ruined, that's quite a tricky word. Scenery as well, quite difficult to spell. And then bobbing as well. So try to use words that might be a little bit more difficult to spell. You can practice your spelling before your exam and make sure that you're comfortable with spelling both basic and some trickier words correctly. It's also a really good idea to check your spelling after you've written your answer, just to make sure that you haven't made any mistakes. You will also be marked on the clarity of your answer, so you need to make sure that all of your writing makes sense. Using good spelling, punctuation and grammar will help with this, and so will reading through the answer in your head, just to make sure that everything is very clear and makes sense when you read it aloud. So we've already seen that this answer is very clear, everything makes sense, we're not questioning what's going on, it's very obvious to the reader. Your answers will also have to be an appropriate length and contain an appropriate amount of detail. So the question specifies that we should write 250 to 300 words, and this answer roughly aligns with that word range. We also need to think about the relevant details that we're going to be using. So here, all of the detail that has been added is relevant, because each paragraph addresses the bullet points in the question. So let's have another quick look at the question. Remember that when you're writing, you should always refer back to the question to make sure that you are covering all of these points. So what the problem is, we can see that the problem is all the litter and fly tipping that is talked about in detail in this paragraph. So we've got the mention of plastic bags and shopping trolleys, and then the next bullet point, why it would be better if the problem was dealt with. Well, we can see that the canal is a nice place for a walk, so it would be better if there was no litter there, and there are animals that call it their home, so it would be better to get rid of the litter for the animals. What your idea is and how it would work on the day. We've got the idea here. I would like to organise a community canal cleanup event. And then how it will work, it will happen on the 2nd of February. It will be sponsored. And then the charity you would like to help is addressed. So they've said that all of the proceeds will go to a local sanctuary that looks after ducks and other birds that have been injured by litter. Finally, we've explained what we would like our friend to do to help organise the day. So they're asking their friend here if they can help out by posting on social media to advertise the event. And they're also asking them to let other family members know and ask if they would like to attend or sponsor them. So we've got appropriate details that have been included here that address all of the bullet points in the question. As well as being detailed, your answers should use the correct formatting and organisation. So you should choose an appropriate range of organisational features that you can use to make your writing clear. So the form that we've been asked to write in here, the text type, is an email. So what formatting features should we include? Well, we have a to address there, and we have a subject line. Now the subject line should just be a short summary of what the text is about. So Project Canal Cleanup is an appropriate subject line to use there. Then we have an address, a polite greeting to the reader. And finally, we have a nice sign off and the name of the sender at the end. So we've used all of the features that need to be included in an email here. And we've also got paragraphs. Now this is very important to break up your writing so that it's much easier for the reader to understand. So in the first paragraph, we've introduced the topic and we're starting to ask some questions to get the reader thinking as well. In the second paragraph, we are going into details about the event and giving a bit of an explanation of what will happen. And the third paragraph, we're making a request to the reader, asking them to help out and explaining how they can do that. And then finally, we are explaining the benefits of the event and thanking our reader in advance. So we've got paragraphs that are clearly about different topics and structure the answer in a logical way. So because these paragraphs are in a logical order, that addresses another marking criteria, which is cohesion. So cohesion means that you should link everything together and join up your ideas so that they flow and make sense as one writing piece altogether. So in each paragraph, we can see that sentences flow on from one another and they're linked together appropriately. So in each paragraph, all your sentences should be addressing the same topic. So in the first paragraph, we've got, I enjoyed our walk along the canal last week. And then since then is referring back to the walk along the canal. I haven't stopped thinking about all the litter and fly tipping. And then they're asking, do you remember all the plastic bags? So do you remember based on the canal walk that was last week? The next sentence, the canal isn't just a nice place for a walk, there are also lots of animals who call it their home. So referring back to the walk that was mentioned at the start there, and adding a bit more detail by mentioning the animals. I have decided that we need to take action. So this final sentence links up with the rest of the paragraph because they are starting to talk about the issues that they have seen and they've said that they need to take action. And all of this paragraph works together because they've talked about the walk as a way to introduce the problems. Another important thing that we need to consider is whether our answer is suited to the purpose and the reader who it's aimed at. So is it using the appropriate language and register for the audience and purpose? Now this answer is definitely suited to the purpose of the text because they're focusing on the sponsored litter pick that they should cover throughout. So we've got all of the criteria that have been mentioned in the bullet points have been fulfilled as well. We've talked about that already. And it's suited to the audience. So we know that this email is supposed to be written for a friend and the student has used informal language to show that they are friends with this person. They've addressed them by name, hi Lindsay, and used the informal greeting, hi rather than dear. We've also got conversational language, so we've got direct address used. Do you remember? Speaking directly to the reader here. Right at the end, we've also got this informal sign-off, love, to show an emotional connection to the person that we're writing for. So it's really well suited to the audience here. Finally, you should try to use complex sentences in your answers. So these are sentences that have multiple ideas contained within them, and they're generally longer sentences with commas or connectives in them. So in this answer, we have a few longer, more detailed sentences. It could include a few more detailed ones. We have got this one here. Since then, I haven't stopped thinking about all the litter and fly tipping that has almost ruined the scenery. So we've got since then, and then we've got a comma there to split up the sentence. So since then shows us a time frame, and then I haven't stopped thinking about all the litter and fly tipping, and then they've moved on and explained how this has impacted the scenery, that it's almost ruined it. So that's a somewhat complex sentence there, but as I said, you do need to try to use as many as possible and try to combine your ideas together and see how they can fit together to make longer sentences. Overall, this is a very good answer though. We've got an effective answer to the question that addresses each point that was asked within the question criteria. And we've met the word count as well. The answer makes sense and all of it flows effectively. Each sentence and each paragraph runs on to the next one, and each paragraph links together effectively in a logical order. We've got the correct formatting used with a to and subject line. We've got accurate spelling and the correct use of a variety of punctuation. And then we've got appropriate writing for the audience and purpose that were specified in the question. So we've addressed our friend and we have focused on the question and the purpose of asking the friend for their help.